In today's Whiteboard Leadership moment, we're talking about leadership lids, and the lid I want to talk about today is creativity. Some of us think we're not very creative people, and some of us just redefine creativity as forgetting where you got it from. But creativity is such an important part of ministry. God's a creative God, and in order to reach new people, we have to reach them in new ways. I want to give credit where credit's due. I learned these things from today's lesson from Larry Osborne, a great mentor in my life, and I'm grateful for the input he's given me, and I think he's even written a book on these ideas. But let's just talk about creativity. Well, there's creativity killers, things like the fear of change and conflict. A lot of leaders won't actually try new things. They won't be creative because they're afraid of what other people will think. They carry the emotional weight of the expectation of others and are unable to do that. But that's definitely a creativity killer. You won't try something new because someone is against it. I know I was talking to a pastor. I was interviewing him for a job at my church. And I said, so tell me about your worship ministry. He said, well, we're this way. We're very traditional, but we're going to change in a couple of years. And I said, well, why are you waiting a couple of years? He said, well, there's these two 90-year-olds in the church. We're just waiting for them to die. That is not a good reason to make a change. That's a fear of conflict, and it's killing the innovation of the church, and the church is losing ground in the community because of a few people that you're concerned about what they think. Then there's the not invented here idea. We have this idea that God gives us everything we need for the church, and that's true, but not when it comes to creativity. Very often you have to go outside your organization to find creative things. There's a pride in the idea that it's homegrown, that it's grassroots, and sometimes that is great, but other times we need help from those people around us who are ahead of us. There's always someone who's ahead of us in something, and if we have a not invented here mentality, we'll never actually go to the place we want to get to. And the next killer is conventional wisdom. This is the way we've always done it. My dad had he was a pastor, and he had this banner behind him in his church, and it said the 7 last words of the church. We never did it that way before. In other words, conventional wisdom is good enough. And yet there's a whole lot of things that are conventional wisdom that aren't good enough. It's the innovators in ministry, the innovators in corporate life, the innovators in life that have come up with new things and enhanced our lives. We didn't have cell phones 20 years ago. We didn't have the internet 30 years ago. We didn't have all sorts of things, wireless just a few years ago, because there were people saying, no, conventional way of thinking, conventional way of doing is not good enough, and they tried to enhance life. One of the big killers of creativity is present day success. It's good enough. It's working for us now. And then the challenge is that in the learning curve, typically there's this point where the things that work today just aren't working as well as they used to, and there's this slippery slope down into irrelevance, down into ineffectiveness that we just don't want to be on. So be careful that your present day success doesn't keep you from finding others who are ramping up to success and learning from them and what they're doing. And then finally, there's dysfunctional team dynamics. A lot of times in our creative meetings, the first to speak sets the tone for everybody else. And if the first one is the leader, then no one else is going to be creative because they don't want to go against the leader because they have this fear of conflict. And so just the first to speak syndrome, just make sure if you're the leader, make sure you're not the first to speak. Let outsiders speak. Let those who aren't used to the status quo, who don't know the conventional wisdom, let them speak first and see what happens. And then there's groupthink. We get in this rut, we get in this rhythm, and we all go down this direction, and everyone goes in a certain direction, and we all have these standards that we all hold to. And we need to get out of our box and have others who think differently than the group has always thought. Now, on the other side, we've got these remedies to creativity lids, and let me just talk about a few of these. The first is to go outside your circles. There's probably a group of people inside the church, inside the community, inside your denomination or affiliation or movement that you always go to. They are your go-to people. And they're going to tell you the same things over and over again based on their experience, which if their experience is vast, that's a good thing. But occasionally you'll hit a lid because all you hear is the same thing over and over and over. And you have to get outside of your group, outside of your circle in order to learn something new and find a different way of doing things. Second, look at the process not just the product. I know a group that was trying to figure out how to transition things better, and it was a church group, and instead of actually just looking at other churches, they went to a NASCAR event, and they learned from a pit crew on how to organize things, how to transition things, and they learned so much from car specialists that they've never gotten from ministry specialists. And it was just, look at the process. Are we trying to make change? Are we trying to create innovation? Are we trying to create order? And find the hotel industry is great in guest services. Go to a place like Amazon or perhaps Chick-fil-A or someone like that is just really good at different things that you maybe need to learn in your ministry. Third, break the rules. Don't keep doing things the same way you've always done them. Creativity doesn't happen in a rut. If you go up to the Yukon, you'll find a road that has a rut, and it says choose your rut wisely because you'll be in it for the next 800 miles. All right. So make sure that you break the rules every once in a while. We talked about this in another whiteboard where invite different people to the meeting. Just because they have position doesn't mean they have creativity, and you got to figure out how to do that. Invite people from outside the church to speak into it. I know that sometimes when it came to our church, we would have what we call secret shoppers who came in and they walked through the guest experience, and then they would communicate to us how their experience was. And we learned from people who'd never been to the church before how outside eyes see differently than inside eyes. And then finally, just make sure that you plan in pencil. That this is it's a first draft, not a final way of doing things. Make sure that you're thinking about it, you're making mid-course corrections, you're trying things, you're experimenting, and you're trusting God in the creativity that He gives you as you pray, as you talk, as you evaluate, as you innovate. I just know that God's going to give you what you need to be more creative in your ministry. This has been a Converge Whiteboard Leadership Moment. To learn more about Converge or to join us, check out converge.org.